the good news.
So, yeah, feel free to just ensconce in the cabeus blanket. Okay, I'm sorry. So thank you guys for having me. It's like a super honor to come here and meet everyone. I would say that, my talk is an introduction to periodic paralysis. Sorry for the literal humor there. But I think that the most important thing you can get out of an in-person conference is meeting other people who have periodic paralysis, because you'll build relationships that will last, for the rest of your life here, and you'll learn so much from everybody. All right. So, clicker. Okay, so I know hypokalemic periodic paralysis very well because I have hypokalemic periodic paralysis. So if you ask me questions about that, I can help. Once it's not hypo, I'm a little bit like, my expertise drops a lot. And I'm a dermatologist, not a neurologist. So if you have any rashes, I can also help you with that. Unfortunately, there's like zero intersection between periodic paralysis. There's like no rash of periodic paralysis. I was dying to find some kind of skin manifestation of periodic paralysis that I could like dig into, but no such luck. Okay, so what is periodic paralysis? I was tasked to kind of just go through what are all the different periodic paralyses, and I kind of want to just touch on management things and important learnings that, I've had over I was diagnosed 13, I'm 51 now, so do the math, whatever. So periodic paralysis is characterized by episodic muscle weakness. Usually it's gradual in onset, often by minutes. You kind of feel like, something's not right, and then in the next 10 minutes, you're kind of paralyzed in some degree or other. Atypically, some people will just collapse. I've seen that at conferences, but that's not the classic, in the literature, but it's a thing. For hypokalemic periodic paralysis, it improves if you take potassium. And, they say hypo is low, kalemic, well, K is the potassium, emic is in the blood, so low potassium in the blood. So when you have an attack and you measure your blood potassium, it should be low. So like in some severe attacks that I've had, I've been like 2.6. Other times I've been like 3 point something, but less than 3.5. That said, there's a lot of people who are normal with their potassium during an attack, and maybe they live at 4.2, but when they go to 3.7, they're paralyzed. And then the doctor's like, well, you don't have periodic paralysis, But I think if you characterize it by improves with potassium, that's like a better litmus test in my mind, because that kind of links all the atypical cases that have been declared not periodic paralysis, but really kind of are periodic paralysis. Everyone has the commonality that if you take the potassium and you get better, that's what gets you out of the attack. That seems to be like a better defining feature. And triggers are, some triggers are, common to both hypo and hyper, which muddies the water of diagnosis. And then some are fairly unique to hypo. So rest after exercise is kind of both. Eating carbohydrates induces hypo because you get insulin that drives potassium from the blood into the muscle. Salt, and Dr. Cannon can explain why salt might be a trigger. I'm not sure why, but it is. Prednisone happens to be a fairly profound trigger for some people. So you might take some prednisone because you had asthma or poison ivy or whatever, and but then expect like a real doozy of an attack potentially. So that's kind of important to anticipate. And if you have any kind of bad diarrhea, like I actually ate some bad shrimp at one periodic paralysis conference, and unbeknownst to me, ended up with like gastroenteritis, and in my hotel room in the evening, I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling well. I asked like the hotel, can I have someone come and watch me? They're like, no, we don't do that. I'm like, fine, call the ambulance. And then I ended up having like one of the most severe attacks in my life. And then I had like and while I'm paralyzed, I had this horrible diarrhea. And I was like so mortified. And then then I it was time to give the talk again. I had gotten better, so I pulled the IV out and left against medical advice. Don't do that. But I had to come give the talk. So, but I went to the bathroom one more time and I saw blood in the stool. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I think Dr. Cannon or someone wrote me some, antibiotics, and everything was good in the world. But the point being that, so if you know your triggers and anticipate them, you can K up and prevent catastrophic bad things. For hyperkalemic periodic paralysis, again, it worsens if you take potassium. And it can be associated with stiffness depending on the variant. And triggers are rest after exercise, fasting, and cold. And I'm sure the hypers in the room can, probably there are other triggers that I'm missing. Again, feel free to share at some point. And then there's Anderson-Tawil syndrome, which has periodic paralysis, but then some distinct body features and associated cardiac long QT syndrome. And so that's a whole special thing that's a little bit more in depth to talk about. There are a lot of other features in periodic paralysis. There's permanent muscle weakness is the most, common and kind of feared thing. And some of that is permanent and some of that is just if you optimize management, you get some function back. And then there's things that they don't talk about in the literature, but we all know by living with the disease. You get muscle pain with attacks. Some people have light sensitivity, and that actually causes an attack. So you have, if there's no windows, there's no sunlight, and there's fluorescent lights that are flickering, and so that will cause an attack. And then you can get really bad moods with attacks. And that makes for a very interesting family dynamic when you have 3 or 4 people with periodic paralysis at the dinner table. Everyone's a little paralyzed and off. So, man, it took my family a good number of years to figure out that whole thing. And then it's just take potassium. Anyway, it's whenever we get into a fight. Okay, so there was some audience participation I wanted to do just to get a sense of, let everyone understand, who's here and whatnot. And I don't know if this is we do this on the app. I'm like a technophobe, so. But what's your diagnosis? How is this going down? Are people able to answer, and do we get a real-time kind of thing, or maybe just raise our hands for here? I didn't know, because there's people in England or whatever that are also listening. Yeah, so raise your hand. Hypo. You think you're hypo, and hyper. Oh wow, so many hypers. Okay, and hyper with paramyotonia congenita, where there's you eat an ice cream in your tongue. Okay, and then Anderson-Tawil. So yeah, this is important, right? Because, you look around the room and the people who are of the same, compare notes. That's so huge to do. Paramyotonia congenita alone, probably not. Myotonia congenita, yeah. Okay, excellent. And then undiagnosed. So that's also, a fair number of people throughout the years come to the conferences because, searching for a diagnosis, and hopefully, we say something that triggers and you're just a caregiver and a spouse. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for coming as well. So, have you had a family member die of complications of periodic paralysis? I'm glad that no hands are up. Okay, I mean, that's definitely a thing, and I don't like to scare people, but if you're lax about not, understanding your triggers and eating a bowl of pasta even though you shouldn't, if you do things that are going to get you into trouble, there can be bad consequences. So you wanna try to be really. I don't want to say militant, but really rigorous about avoiding triggers if you can. Have you been mistreated or dismissed in an emergency room or doctor's office? Yeah, it's about half the people. My apologies on behalf of my profession for the awful stories I've heard. It is infuriating, the things I've heard. I mean, just so many stories, which I think would be nice if you share those stories. It's kind of therapeutic. It's also, it's always a struggle to find strategies to, you know, how to make that not happen. And then, do you feel you are managed optimally now? So, yeah, that's unfortunate. So that most of the people in the room are not perfect in their management. So hopefully we can get you there. Is your name Shelley Schiffman? Oh, she's outside, man. All right, I thought that was Shelley and I go way back since the very first conference in 1999. So, okay, therapy for hypo. For acute attacks, it's oral potassium. I'm a fan, and again, my recommendations are colored by my own personal experience, and I've totally found it's really all over the map what works best for people. But, I mean, a lot of people have told me when I've suggested this and they've done it, that it does very well, to do kind of a larger bolus of, I have my lactose intolerance pills, but I have my potassium packets. I always have the potassium packets on. You never know when you're going to have ice cream, and you never know when you're going to get paralyzed. But so I put like 3 of these packets in water for a guy my size, and maybe even 4 because I've been working out. And you do it all at once. My mom can't do that. She's like, it upsets my stomach, and so she's chronically underdosed, and I don't even know what to do about it. But I suck down the potassium, like before I work out, for example, like I'll have the 60 or 80, and I think I function kind of normally, but you know, we'll never know, right? The prescription, doctors are so afraid to write so much potassium because they're like, oh, you're going to get a cardiac arrhythmia and die. If you take it by mouth, that's probably not going to happen. First of all, you're going to get like a paresthesias and tingling, and then you'll know like, okay, maybe it's time to lay off. And second, you're going to have diarrhea from so much salt. And so you're probably not going to be able to overdose on oral potassium, especially if your blood potassium is low and you're taking it to recover it. But when you go to the doctor, like, let's say I take 3 potassiums before I work out, and if I work out every day, which is not, I don't, but, so that's, you know, 3 times 365, or 3 times 30, that's 90, right, packets? But then you have to assume that every day you're going to get an attack that's going to require, you know, 6 packets. Because you don't want to be short. You know, the worst is that it's the 20th of the month and you're done with your potassium and now you have a bad attack. Like, that's the worst. So, you know, you have to have a bunch of potassium, and they have to prescribe it that way, and they have to trust that you're going to use it judiciously. You know, and there is, when you're a doctor-patient relationship, like you know, you're not dumb. Like you know how to use the medicine, and you know, I mean, you buy a bottle of Tylenol in the store, you don't take the whole bottle, I mean, unless you have issues. But, okay, when you go to the ER, go with a buddy or an advocate. I mean, a lot of times, if you're going to the ER, it's a bad attack, you know, and you may not be able to breathe well, talk, like you could talk, but you're just talking like this because you don't have enough strength to talk. Then you need someone to help you. And then you have to have the person protect you from the doctor who's like, well, if it were real, then you should not let that drop on your face. You know, like, anyway, so maybe they can tell you, you know, help you with that. Preventing attacks for hypo, acetazolamide or dichlorphenamide, those are potassium wasting, and so you wouldn't think that they would work. And I feel like, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, Don Anderson was hypo. He passed away, but he was like one of the original like guys as part of these conferences who would come. And they thought he was hyper. They gave him acetazolamide, and he got better. But then it worked out he was hypo, and they discovered that indeed, you know, acetazolamide works for both hypo and hyper. But if you do acetazolamide or dichlorphenamide, it does waste potassium. You probably will need a little extra potassium. Eplerenone or spironolactone, those are potassium-sparing diuretics. Those can work very nicely. Spironolactone will make the men grow moobs, you know, the gynecomastia. So eplerenone doesn't have that side effect, but still has the benefit of the potassium sparing. And then strict trigger avoidance, goes without saying, dietary self-control, and potassium prophylaxis. Now, dietary self-control. We order dinner, it's a hamburger with a bun and french fries, and that's what's for dinner. And so your food options then is like, well, I guess you could just eat the burger, but you're like still hungry. So you just, the food choices, it's so difficult in this day and age. If you go to Starbucks or what doesn't have sugar and all the triggers so it's really hard to find good dietary choices. But if you do the effort and then are strict about it, really strict about it, you actually will find in a 2-week period a dramatic increase in well-being. Okay. For potassium prophylaxis, I would ignore the dosing. I think that it's a trial and error situation. That, at the end of the day, like when I was young and doing karate, I would take 1 pill of potassium sustained release. That didn't do it. 6 pills did it, but I'd have to take it like an hour before. And then another neurologist turned me on to the packets, and that like changed my life for, forever. And some people need 100, some people need 120, some people need 40, some people need pills, some people need packets. You won't know until you try all of it, and just over a year's time or so, things work itself out. Before bed, so if you do a severe exercise or have some kind of trigger, and you think that you're going to wake up paralyzed, if you take up potassium before bed as that bolus, you're going to sleep better, because I don't know how many people have unrestful sleep. And it's probably because you're in an attack and you just don't rest well. Non-restorative sleep, it's like you wake up tired even though you slept. It's so frustrating. When you take potassium before bed, sometimes that helps a lot. Yes, and then if you exercise twice a day for whatever reason, and maybe 60 in the morning and 60 in the afternoon is too much, but then you do 60 and 40. I don't know, it's like a trial and error thing. The strict trigger avoidance, we said, and you have to have the balance between enjoying, I like brownies. I'll have a brownie now and again. I'll pay for it, but it also being clear-minded and strong is nice too. So maybe just remember that the brownie tasted good, but then don't eat the brownie. So I enjoy them from my memory. And then a triggers diary. Not all triggers are triggers every time. I used to remember I went to this Japanese restaurant and I'd have the benihana, like the steak and the bowl of rice. And I would scarf down the rice and I'd be fine. Next day I'd be fine. I wouldn't feel tired. Then next week go to the same restaurant, scarf down the rice, paralyzed as all heck. And then I'm like, oh, well, it must not be the rice because it's not every time, right? A trigger has to be every time. No. It totally can be sometimes a trigger and sometimes not a trigger. And then as you get older, it becomes more consistently a trigger. You'll find certain foods. For me, it's like Gatorade, the certain pizza places, certain Chinese food, a bowl of pasta. All of that will drive me really badly into it. So I just don't eat those things. A change in activity. You're sedentary for 10 years. You're like, I want to start getting in shape. I'm going to, walk 3 miles. Maybe start with a quarter mile slowly. And, but if you do big changes, you're going to get in trouble. Carbohydrates, salt, alcohol, MSG, all things. And Gatorade, I drank a bottle of Gatorade every day for 15 years. From age 13 through residency. And one day I drank the Gatorade in residency and I'm like, man, this is causing me, it's all sugar. And so, I was putting the potassium in the Gatorade, so it was kind of counteracting, but that was the dumbest thing ever. Because it's oh, Gatorade, it's electrolytes, but no, it's sugar water, okay? All right, and then medications, obviously, you just have to pay attention. And then infections like the flu. If you know you're getting the flu and you feel that flu-like thing, so you have the flu, that's going to predispose you to a profound paralysis attack. Take the potassium as if you're going to work out, and so it's an extra dose plus a Tylenol, and I think you're going to avoid problems. Triggers are different for different people, so. Exercise, pre-medicate, I'll just say that. For hyper-PP, Oral glucose, like a candy bar or glucose tabs, will drive potassium into the cell. It can make all the difference in the world. Albuterol, if that sugar doesn't work, you take the inhaler, let it stay there for as long as you can hold your breath, and then exhale. Okay, you'll breathe. Your asthma will go away, but the potassium will drive again into the cell, because epinephrine, albuterol is epinephrine. It functions the same way as insulin in terms of driving potassium into the cell. Oral glucose plus insulin. If you're going to play with that, the internist or endocrinologist really needs to know what they're doing, and you'd need a fingerstick blood sugar monitor like a diabetic. And then if you're really profoundly hyperkalemic and it's a problem, especially in the hospital, they may give you calcium gluconate IV that stabilizes the cardiac myocardium from arrhythmias. And then preventing attacks, it's acetazolamide or dichlorphenamide, which works potassium wasting and probably other ways. Potassium wasting diuretics like hydrochlorothiazide are good. And if you go above 25, you don't get the blood pressure effect, but you still get potassium wasting effect. So higher doses of HCTZ will actually be helpful and not necessarily be negative for blood pressure. Trigger avoidance, frequent meals, keeping warm, these kind of go without saying. Atypical periodic paralysis, but still behaves as periodic paralysis. And I don't know how many people in the room kind of have this kind of presentation. I've seen this over the years. It's very odd. I've even questioned whether someone has periodic paralysis myself. I'm like, why are you here, kind of thing. But then over the years, I eat my hat, and I'm like, wow, I get it. And maybe it's not described in textbooks, but again, responds to potassium, that's the overriding theme. Sudden weakness you can collapse. So it's not that you ran up the stairs, you sat down, and you're like, in 5 minutes, you're like, hey, I can't get up. That's the regular. Here it's like Shelley one time walked over to me, and again, I don't know if she's in the room or not, but and she's like, here, look at my hand, and it was like a Raynaud's phenomenon. Like she had her fingers turned purple, and then she just collapsed right in front of me. I'm like, oh my God, okay. And then some people have muscle twitching, and then some bizarre triggers like smell, lights, electromagnetic fields. That I would like to validate that as potentially a thing for some people. You want to have a safe physical environment. At the bedside, you want to have potassium or, sugar water for hypers, Don't have a glass bottle, have a water bottle, because when you're kind of weak and it knocks over, then you're going to have glass over the floor, and now you fall onto the glass. I mean, you can imagine bad scenarios. A telephone always in reach, and I remember in college once I was next to an open window in the winter, and I woke up mad paralyzed, and I'm like, okay, that was stupid, and preventable, because you're shivering, and shivering is exercise, and then rest after exercise. Never be caught without potassium. I have it on my person. If you forget, you wear a different pair of pants, and it's not in your pants, it's like, oh, I don't have my potassium. But then it's secretly in your jacket. It's in your computer bag. It's in your glove compartment of your car, which probably will melt, but okay. And yes, that's extra prescription from the doctor to have the secret stash of potassium in your suitcase, in my suitcase that I took here, because sometimes you're running out and you just forget, So, but this one you can't be, and at work, you can't be without potassium. You just can't get caught without potassium. So just make sure it's everywhere. Avoid slippery rugs, handrails in the bathtub, and a buddy system. Buddy systems are really helpful, especially if you're live alone. I remember in college I had a single, and I had a friend every morning check on me. And some mornings I was paralyzed, and he had to call the janitor to open the door, and they saved me. I would say it's lifelong learning. Your body changes with time. I just anecdotally, I can speak from my own personal. I never had to take a nap after dinner. And now I eat a meal, I swear, and maybe it's just because I'm just running myself ragged, but I eat a meal and I'm just and I have to go to the couch. It doesn't matter what politics they're talking about at the table, what show is on. I'm going to the couch, and I'm out for 15, 20 minutes. And I know for sure sometimes it's if I just suck down some potassium, maybe I'd perk right up. And sometimes lately, I get fatigue, but no weakness. But it improves with the potassium. It's oh, I'm so tired. But then you take potassium, and it's oh, I'm back. And it's not just from being tired. Always reevaluate the potassium dosing, your exercise tolerance, and the triggers. They change with the years. So what was true for you at 20 is not maybe true for you at 50. And you know, like I find that I need more potassium now. Maybe I needed more potassium then, and I'm just smarter now. I don't know. And then I love this quote that a man's got to know his limitations. So, I do boxing, I do karate, but like I'm not gonna be in the ring with Mike Tyson. I make no mistake about that. I'm just trying to be healthy, and I'm not saying lay down and die and don't try. And I mean, I remember there was one guy. He's a marathon runner and a triathlete, and did incredibly physical things with periodic paralysis. But you want to be realistic, and PP is a disability, and I struggle with that. I don't view myself as disabled, but I'm kind of disabled. I just have to be like, that's me. It's okay, and you work with it. And I'll leave you with, at least it's not curiosity. All right, I love that cartoon. That's like among my favorite cartoons. And also, don't ever give up. And those are my bunnies. That's Blossom, Buttercup, Bubbles, Buttercup, Blossom, that's Powerpuff Girls, and Hazel. Okay. That's it. Thank you.